Good morning, Your Honor. Teddy Park on behalf of the plaintiff.
Good morning, Your Honor. Robert Egwood on behalf of the plaintiff.
Good morning, Your Honor. Maggie D. Federico on behalf. Good morning, Brandon Spitzler on behalf of the plaintiffs.
Good morning, Your Honor. Eric Pepperwood for plaintiffs.
Morning, Your Honor. Brad Johnson, Eric Freeman, Tyler Watson, and Michael Esposito on behalf of the defendants.
All right, once again, good morning, everyone. And I would anticipate we're ready to go. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right. We are, Your Honor.
And who's the next witness?
Dr. Najee, Your Honor, who you may remember from
Okay. All right.
previous experiences.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. All right, and it's my understanding we're going to continue with the plaintiff's case in chief. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right. And are we ready to continue?
We are, Your Honor.
Okay.
May we proceed, Your Honor?
Yes, you may, Mr. Parker.
We'd like to call Dr. Najim to the stand, Your Honor.
Okay.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
May I have you state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Issam Najim.
And spell your name for the record?
Issamnajm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Parker, you may proceed, sir.
Thank you so much. Your Honor, before we start, may I approach Tori?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I'm assuming you're going to say Dr. Najim across. Your Honor, what I've given Tori and Mr. Freeman is a copy of all of the exhibits. We intend to use a list of the exhibits, actually, not a copy of them. They're all here electronically, of course. I believe they've all been pre-admitted.
I'll take your word on that. No objection.
And I'm gonna read them into the record, Your Honor, just so the court's record reflects what I've given Mr. Freeman and Ms. Tori. Is that,
All right,
okay?
that's fine, sir.
Thank you. So, Your Honor, the exhibit numbers are 5, 6, 8, 16, 59, 60, 62, 63, 65, 66, 67, 69, 70, 71, 95, and 96, and we may actually refer to exhibits 99 and 106 as well.
So,
Admitted.
thank you.
Any objection?
And they've been admitted already, I think, haven't they? Were they pre-
Nothing's submitted as far as I know.
They were pre-admitted as a part of the court's rulings, Your Honor,
I understand.
but Mr. Freeman has seen these exhibits
They
before.
just haven't been moved into evidence, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So now we're moving into evidence in this case, Your Honor.
Shall be admitted.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Dr. Najim, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Dr. Najim, I'd like to introduce you to our jury. Could you please tell the jury what kind of expert you are?
I'm an environmental engineer with 35 years of experience in water treatment and water quality.
There's something, Shane, let's put, slide up number 1, please. And can you tell us where you got your education from?
Yes, I hold a master's and doctorate degrees in environmental engineering from the University of Illinois. And that's my graduate engineering education.
And it's my understanding you're a professional civil engineer?
Yes, I am a registered professional civil engineer in the state of California.
Could you explain to the jury how a civil engineer degree and masters or doctorates would relate to water testing, water quality, and generally public water use?
Sure. Environmental engineering is a subspecialty of civil engineering. So in the world of engineering, there is electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and civil engineering. The civil engineering is what deals with all the components of infrastructure that a community would have, whether airports, buildings, roads, and the drinking water systems and the wastewater systems and the pollution, air control. That is environmental engineering that is under the larger umbrella of civil engineering. So my bachelor's degree was in civil engineering, and then I continued specialization in graduate school under the environmental engineering subset of that civil engineering umbrella.
Okay, so under the overall civil engineering umbrella, then you have environmental engineering, and then how did you come to specialize in water treatment?
Yet environmental engineering is also a broad topic because it covers air pollution, it covers water pollution, and it covers earth, soil pollution. So when you proceed in graduate school studies, you focus on specific specialty under environmental engineering. And that's where I did my doctorate degree in specifically a chemical contamination in a drinking water topic. And that's what I received my degree in.
All right. And because of that particular specialty, you found yourself involved in this case.
I tell people that I hire, in your first 3 years of work, you'll learn more than you did in first 3 months of work. You'll learn what you did in 3 years of study. So my experience is really the depth of my knowledge. It's the 35 years of doing nothing but water quality and water treatment and water chemistry issues.
And as a part of your education, did you have to take chemistry classes?
Yes, I did.
And were those chemistry classes geared towards water quality?
They are specifically referred to as aquatic chemistry. So it's dealing with the chemistry of water and the chemistry of chemicals in water.
Yes, sir. Are you also a teaching professional?
I am. I hold an appointment at UCLA as an adjunct associate professor of civil environmental engineering.
And how long have you been a professor?
The appointment was from 2004, so it's been just over 20 years.
Yes, sir. Do you have any professional certifications?
Yes, as I mentioned, I am a professional engineer by the state of California, and I'm also a board-certified environmental engineer.
And in terms of professional experiences, are you involved in any particular organizations that deal specifically with water quality for the benefit of the public?
Yes, I am a member of the American Waterworks Association, which is a professional association of the drinking water community out there. And I mean by that all the water providers to all the communities across the country.
Are you also, you said the American Waterworks Association. How about the American Academy of Environmental Engineers and Scientists? Are you also a part of that group?
Yes, and that is the organization that provides the board certification for environmental engineers. So I am a member of that organization.
All right. Do you, in addition to teaching, do you have your own company that provides consulting services for water providers?
Yes, I do.
And can you describe what your company does and perhaps some of the clients you service?
I started my career in a large firm that deals with drinking water treatment and providing services to public water agencies. And in 2000, I left and I started my own small business as a consultant for drinking water agencies. And so my focus is on providing advice to water agencies or water providers dealing with water chemistry problems or complying with regulations or resolving challenges that they may have.
Understood. Would these be cities, towns, counties that you typically represent?
It's a broad spectrum of municipal water agencies as well as private water companies and there are several private water companies around the country as well.
Okay. And would these water companies provide drinking water like in this type of liter or half-liter bottles, all the way up to cities and municipalities providing water like Clark County here?
Most of my work, the vast majority of it, is with the providers of the tap water, the drinking water, the public drinking water systems. But I have done some work for entities that do produce bottled water as well.
Would that be like Coca-Cola or Nestle, those types of companies?
Yes, a while back, I did work to provide advice to Coca-Cola and Pepsi on some water quality challenges that they were having.
Now, have you written any papers or articles related to water quality?
Yes, I have published few dozens of articles in journals on water quality and water treatment challenges.
It's my understanding you've also received several recognitions and awards for your work in water quality.
Yes, I have.
I believe you received the Best Paper Award from the AWWA on water from its Water Quality Division in 2014. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did you also receive the Best Publication Award in 2007 from the AWWA?
That is correct.
It's also my understanding you've written somewhere around 25 articles dealing with water quality.
Yes, probably more, probably a little less. I don't remember the number.
Yes, sir. And it's also my understanding that you've done research projects, well over a dozen, related to water quality.
Yes, I have.
Now, in addition to that, it's also my understanding that you may be one of the few scientists that have provided written works on hydrazine.
I have done research on hydrogen. That is correct.
Shane, will you show slide number 2, please? So in front of the jury right now, we have a 2006 article and a 2011 article. Were you an author or a participating author in these two articles?
Yes, these are research reports, and this is the research that I conducted.
All right. And can you tell us, let's start with the 2006 publication by Dr. Najam. Can you tell us what this was about, generally?
Yes. Generally, this is about investigating how hydrazine may form during water treatment.
And why is that important? What's the significance of determining how hydrazine may or may not be formed in chloramine as a chloramine byproduct?
Hydrazine is a very well-known chemical as an industrial chemical. And so in part of my research work, I noticed that what forms it could be something similar to what is used in water treatment. So I proceeded to conduct this research to look at it because hydrazine is a fairly harmful chemical.
Harmful chemical.
Yes.
All right. Let's go to the next slide. We can bring this up. So this comes from the article that you were just speaking of. And it says hydrazine is a potent carcinogen with a 10-6 cancer risk. Can you explain that to the jury?
Yes. When looking at chemicals or contaminants in drinking water, there needs to be an entity that sets what is the bar, where should this chemical be in water. So that's typically the job of the EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency. Or in individual states, there are health departments that set that number. So hydrazine is what is referred to in the classification is a probable human carcinogen, as in it causes cancer in the long term. So the question is, okay, how much of it causes 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000? What is the probability? So what this 10⁻⁶ risk level means It's 1 in a million is the floor that regulatory agencies set. And what that means is an individual drinking a certain water, and the standard is 2 liters per day, which is just literally half a gallon. And that's consumption, drinking and cooking, whatever. Consuming 2 liters a day over 70 years, there is a 1 in a million chance of that person contracting cancer. So what it says is that if that water is at 10 N grams, so that's nanograms per liter, that is the cutoff level for 1 in a million chance. And so a higher concentration would be a higher chance of cancer. Lower concentration would be a lower chance of cancer. But that's the threshold that is used to develop regulations in the country.
And Dr. Najim, the second line says, when administered to various animals, is that an indication that there was animal testing done to determine the negative effects of hydrazine?
Yes, the way these numbers are developed, there are very few chemicals where we have human data on them, because we're not going to do human testing. So there's a lot of animal testing that happens, and they extrapolate what they observe in the animals to what a human would experience based on body weight is the primary criteria.
And it says that it induced various lung and cancer carcinomas. So based upon your publication and the information that you've been able to get from the EPA, is there a real public interest in preventing hydrazine in your drinking water?
It's a complicated question. I'm not the one who have done the cancer research. I'm referring to what levels have been determined. As an engineer, our job is to decide, okay, if there's someone wants to keep hydrazine below a level, what does it take? And that's where we come in as engineers. So we're very familiar with where the threshold is and needs to be. Mm-hmm. So hydrazine is not a very common chemical at all in drinking water. And usually when a state or the EPA are looking to protect public health by regulations, they look for things that are very significant and they're prevalent. There's a lot of occurrence of it. So for example, they go and find arsenic is in a lot of waters. Say, wait a minute, we got to set a limit on arsenic. That's a priority. Hydrazine would rarely occur in a drinking water system. It requires a specific type of conditions that would allow it to form, and those are rare enough that it has not risen as a priority for the regulatory agencies. They're aware of it, but it's not on the priority list because it doesn't occur that frequently at all. So I hope that answers the question.
Certainly. And it was important enough for you in this publication to advise municipalities about hydrazine formation. Is that correct?
Yes, this is a research conducted by that was funded by the Water Research Foundation, which is a collection of water agencies across the country who contribute to a research program that allows them to explore things that are not even on the regulatory radar screen right now. And so my interest in it was in noticing that this could form. So we submitted a proposal to explore what forms and how much of it, and that was the impetus behind this project.
Yes, sir. Ultimately, was your publication designed to prevent the public from consuming hydrazine in their public water?
The research was designed to determine if and how much hydrazine forms in public water and under what conditions.
Yes, sir.
The next step would be to, if it's significant, then it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed by those who have those conditions in their drinking water system.
Yes, sir. Is it fair to say that hydrazine is harmful to those who consume it?
I would not want to consume it. But the direct answer is yes, especially at elevated levels.
All right, and we're going to get to those levels in a moment. Next slide, Shane. Now, this is something that Mr. Kemp referred to as a GCMS, gas chromatograph mass spectrometer. Are you familiar with that device or that piece of equipment?
Yes.
Was that piece of equipment available to you when you were in school?
Yes.
And has that piece of equipment been available to the public for purposes of testing water?
That equipment is available by virtually all laboratories that analyze drinking water samples. And so a public agency may not need to have this instrument. They simply send the sample to a lab that has that instrument to run the analysis.
Okay. It's my understanding that you can run a test to a lab to have a GCMS test performed on water somewhere $200 or so. Is that a fair approximation?
Depending on what one is asked the lab to analyze it for, the prices can be variable, yes. But that's in the ballpark of the mid-range of what it costs.
Thank you. So this is the second publication, 2011, Quantifying Hydrazine in Chlorinated Water. What was the purpose of this publication?
So this research report was a follow-up to the first one. So the first one looked at if I add these typical chemicals that are used in water treatment, will I form hydrazine, and under what conditions? And that was the first project. The second research was about saying, okay, now that we've shown that it can form in the lab, let's go out and look under normal conditions in a drinking water system at water treatment plants. Could it form there? And that was the focus of this second one. So the first one was the laboratory research. The second one was taking samples out in the real world, if you want to say.
Yes, sir. And so I put this up on the screen because it's a table within the publication. It's a very long publication, and we won't go through the entire thing with the jury. But the gas chromatograph mass spectrometer conditions for hydrazine analysis. This is something that's in your publication.
Yes.
Is this a readout or display of what was determined by use of that GCMS?
No. What this is, these instruments, if you're trying to analyze for a specific chemical, you have to basically program it to do a certain sequence. It heats up the sample, pushes gas through it, heats it up again. So these are the operating conditions of the instrument when you want to analyze for hydrazine. And so it was documented in the report so that any researcher who's going afterwards to do additional research, they have all the information that they would need to implement. And that's the nature of doing that research.
Okay, so let's make sure the jury understands.
Yes.
This readout, and I'm going to have you leave the stand for a second after I get permission from the court, actually tells someone else who's looking at it, the audience, whoever's reading your publication, these were the conditions of the equipment, how they were set, that ultimately determined whether or not a certain chemical was identified.
These are the conditions that were set so that when you run a sample through it, you'll be able to detect hydrazine if it's present.
And if someone wanted to check your findings, they could replicate these conditions using this information.
That is how research is built on previous research, yes.
Thank you so much. Next slide. So this was the full-scale sampling, again, another page out of your publication, bless you. And it talks about sampling of one of the water treatment plants discussed in your publication. Is this what you were speaking about a few moments ago, that you took the research from the first publication and then applied it in testing of actual conditions?
That is correct.
Perfect. Now, finally, this comes as well from your publication, and it's figure 3.7, a schematic diagram of the water treatment plant. Can you tell us, Your Honor, can he step down for a second?
You may, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Can you tell the jury what this schematic reveals? And then this is going to be a segue into how you determined that hydrazine was in the real water product, okay?
Okay.
Go. Okay, there we go.
This is a schematic of a municipal drinking water treatment plant. And, every community has a municipal drinking water system that very few of the people have seen or know about. You open the tap and you drink the water. But this is the kind of treatment systems that every community has, and this is one of them. This is the one that we conducted sampling at for that research project. So the water comes in, chlorine is added as part of the treatment, ferric and lime. These are chemicals that are added to remove all the dirt from water. You take water out of a lake and you would not drink it, but that same water shows up at your tap and it's clear and it's disinfected. So this is the process that every municipal water system goes through. So there are lime, ammonia, fluoride are added here. This is carbon dioxide, a phosphate chemical. But this is a water, in this case, water that's very hard. What hard means has a lot of calcium in it. So this plant was designed to remove calcium from water, and that's what this process does. So after removing a lot of that calcium, the water goes through a filtration process, and a clear well and chlorine is added for disinfection and then out into the system. And so there are chemicals added to purify that water going down the treatment train.
Thank you so much. Now, let's talk about what hydrazine is. Explain this chart to us, please.
Hydrazine, ironically, is a fairly simple chemical. It's got two nitrogen bonded with one bond, and on each nitrogen there is two hydrogens. So its formula is basically N2H4. And that's it. That's what this chemical is.
Got it. So N2H4 makes sense. You got two N's and four H's.
Yes.
That's the extent of my chemistry right there. Thank you, Dr. Najim. Next slide, please. I'm going to ask you, this was shown earlier in the opening. What is hydrazine even used for?
Hydrazine is probably one of the most studied and researched chemicals as an industrial chemical. And the reason is that hydrazine is what we call an energetic chemical. What that means, if it's a fuel, you can, at high concentrations, it is used very much to propel satellites, to propel space station, and it's actually still used right now. It was a big topic of research during the Cold War between the Soviets and the US, trying to do research who can study hydrazine more and use it more for rocketry. But it's a chemical that, when ignited, it breaks down very quickly to nitrogen gas, so it produces a lot of thrust. And so it's been very well studied as a defense industry chemical. And it's right now, as I mentioned, still used. It's not used to launch rockets, but it's used to maneuver rockets in space. If you see a rocket with a little puff on the side that kind of moves it in one direction, most of the time that's hydrazine that is stored in there and is used for maneuvering.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Najim, why, to your knowledge, why were you brought in to analyze this case?
I got a call that, that asked me if I knew hydrogen chemistry. They saw the publications, and I was asked if I would provide advice on answering some questions about hydrazine in this case.
All right. Shane? So do you recall these being the three primary questions you were asked to answer?
Yes, these were the primary questions that are posed to me.
Okay, the first one is based on the information provided. Is there anything in real water production process that can explain how hydrazine could be present in the E2 concentrate? Were you able to answer that question?
I have answered that question to the best of my ability.
All right. Let's take next slide, Shane. Now, this is going to take a second, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to prepare you right now.
A little more than a second.
A little more than a second. But Mr. Kemp, during his opening, tried to explain. Here's the actual evidence. Doctor, take your time. You know, we had to go through it several times. Do your best to explain it to the jury. And Your Honor, he's fine to step down, correct?
Yeah, he's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Okay. When I started reading the material for this case, I actually constructed this schematic because the way I work is I need to see the whole picture before I can dissect it. So this basically is what I surmised from the documents that I read as to how the real water product is produced. And so if I may take you through the 4 steps here. Oh, thank you.
And Your Honor, what we're doing here, and they can see it, but I want to make sure we are aware. In addition to showing the schematic, the diagram, next to the diagram are examples of pictures from the real water facility with the exhibit numbers attached. So that they're on the list that I provided Mr. Freeman and Tori, Your Honor.
I understand.
All right, go right ahead.
So the way the process works is they take tap water from Las Vegas Valley Water District, as I understand, and it goes through a filtration system, and this is the photograph of that filtration system. And once it goes through the filtration system, it's put into a 300-gallon tank. Okay? And in that tank, this is potassium chloride. So basically it's just salt that is added to this water. Okay, so that prepares purified water after going through the treatment system with salt in it. And then the water is pumped out of this 300 gallons, and it is processed through what is referred to as the titanium tubes.
Stop right there.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
These, I'll hand them to you, Your Honor, if I could.
Yes, you may.
Okay? So these are the tubes that, this is my attempt at drawing a schematic of these tubes. And what these do is, you see here a little power meter. So there's a bit of a, basically an applied electricity on the metal pieces of this tube as the water is passing through it. So water comes in from 2 ports and comes out from 2 ports. But what happens is, as you apply the water through it, you apply electricities which has a negative and a positive. And you apply that power on that water. And so what happens is, then the water comes out with one water being negative and one water being positive because of the charge of that electricity. So the positive part is thrown away. That's not important for the production. So the negative part is collected into a second tank. And that's why you see here 300 gallon, this is 150, because half of it is negative and the other half was positive, thrown away. And then this is referred to as intermediate water because this is not negative enough. So what they did is they take the 150 again and run it again through the tubes. And so again, charge the electricity on it to split more the negative from the positive. And so the more negative water, and I have 2 minuses here, more negative water is collected and the positive water is thrown away. And so now we're down to 75 gallons of what is literally referred to as negative water. So this is the final negative water that they produced.
Shane. Your Honor, may I publish the tubes to the jury?
Any objection?
No objection.
Yes, you may.
I'll start at the beginning. Thank you, Your Honor. And so these are the Russian tubes that Mr. Marlowe used and he would apply electricity to, which is also on the screen right here to the bottom.
Correct.
If we could, I want to show the jury the actual electrical device used.
So this was photo taken from the water plant, as I understand it, and this is the power generator with the applied cables that connect to the tubes and pretty much the way you connect to a car battery, in a sense. But this is and it, on the dials on it, tells you how much power you're putting in the water as you're running it through those tubes.
All right. So during the opening, the jury learned through Mr. Kemp's presentation that this electrical charge was used twice, like you just said. This was the electrical equipment used to apply the charge, correct?
That is my understanding.
And it was applied to those tubes that the jury is now holding.
That is my understanding.
Let's see step 3, please.
So now after taking that negative water, they store that and they take 2.5 gallons of it into more of the purified tap water, the filtered tap water. And they add some salts and a caustic chemical to it. And this makes up 300 gallons of what is referred to as the E2 concentrate. And these are photos of those tanks and how they use them at the plant.
Now, the minerals added to the water, are those corrosive? I see on exhibit 67, bottom right, the word corrosive.
One of these chemicals is this chemical here, which is potassium hydroxide, and you see the name of it here. Basically, this, as a pure chemical, this is a corrosive chemical, very much like an acid. This is the opposite of an acid. It's called a caustic chemical. Now, what it's used for is, you know, water has a pH, and acidic water is a low pH. Alkaline or caustic water is a high pH. So the way you raise the pH of water is you add these types of chemicals, and this is one of them that was used at the plant to raise the pH of the water.
All right. Now let's show step 4, please. One more.
So this is, again, what's referred to as the E2 concentrate. So this is the concentrate that was used to make the product water. And the way they do it, again, they take 2 to 2.5 gallons out of this E2 concentrate and add it to filtered tap water again to make up 300 gallons. And in it, they also add, this is bicarbonate, it's basically baking soda, and a little bit of the caustic chemical also to adjust their pH. So they had a target pH for the product water, so they used this chemical to bring the pH to that value. But once it got to this is now what was used to put in the bottles and the gallons and whatever containers that were sold.
All right. So if you were to go a little bit to the right of your diagram, exhibit 70 shows these large containers.
Yes.
Is it your understanding this is what the water was, how the water was contained and eventually leading to the concentrate?
That is my understanding. I have not been to the plant, but that is my understanding.
All right. And so the question that the FDA answered, which I believe you reviewed all of the FDA reports, was that the concentrate, the E2 concentrate, contained hydrazine. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Next slide. And this is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA's report. Did you review this, Doc?
Yes, I did.
It says here hydrazine was identified in the liquid portion. So that would, again, would be in these concentrate samples,
Of
correct?
that concentrate, yes, that E2 concentrate that we mentioned earlier.
Now, I want to explain to the jury, I want you to explain to the jury the significance of the piece of equipment we showed earlier, the GCMS. Did the FDA use a GCMS to determine hydrazine was in concentrate?
Yes, they did.
And can you show the jury on the board?
Right.
And again, that would have been available certainly before 2008, when Real Water started making its product.
Yes, it was available.
Tell me what your opinion is, Doctor, on the levels of hydrazine determined. This 1.44, the 1.75, and then I'll show you the third shortly.
Well, let me remind you back of the 10 to the minus 6 cancer risk level. That was 10 nanograms per liter. These levels, the unit is milligram per milliliter. So I need to visually relay how they relate to each other. Milligram per liter is like a gram per liter. So that 10 nanogram, a nanogram is 1 billionth of a gram. A gram is 1 billion nanogram. So when I say, when we look at these numbers, 1.44, basically gram per liter. That's 1.44 billion nanograms per liter.
So, just because you had to run this by me a few times, Yara, can I approach the jury just to get the tubes back?
Yes, you can.
Thank you, sir. We're going to give this back to you safety. When you consider the 10 minus 6 over these hydrazine findings, have you ever seen hydrazine levels at this rate?
In the drinking water world that I work with, no, we talk about nanograms per liter levels, not these levels. These are, as I mentioned, that's 1.44 billion nanograms per liter.
So that's using easy numbers for the rest of us,
Yes,
those of us who are not mathematicians. Is that 1,000 times more per milliliter than the nanograms, or 1 billion times more?
it's 1 billion times more.
You would never expect to find, would you ever expect to find that level of hydrazine in any water?
Water that's used for consumption, no. But if it's if you're using it in industrial applications, those are the kind of levels you're working with. But not not all water is for consumption. Consumption water, no,
You wouldn't expect to find it in this.
no,
You wouldn't expect to find it being used for children's formula.
no,
You wouldn't expect it to be marketed as the safest water to adults, children, and seniors.
no.
Let me show you the third result. And I think this is, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna go right behind you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir.
I didn't know if you were.
Excuse me.
Oh, good question.
interrupt, sir.
Being careful of the TASE event.
Thank you.
You don't want me to continue? and handle
Yeah, you
that
can
after?
continue.
Oh,
We'll
thank
wait
you.
until the end.
All right. So this is the third of the 3 tests. You're aware of that, Dr. Nigel?
Correct.
Again, it says they were using a gas,
GCMS,
yeah, hematograph mass spectrometer on this test as well, correct?
correct,
And the result was 1.33.
correct.
So we have a 1.33, a 1.44, and a 1.75. 3 out of 3 with 1 billion times more per milliliter than you would expect in drinking water, correct?
Correct, and these were in the concentrate.
All right. So now let's take a look at and one other thing. This is the same piece of equipment that the FDA used within months of doing their investigation, correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
And this is a picture of the GCMS device, correct?
Correct.
Now, are you familiar with the Eurofins testing?
Yes, I am.
So on the screen now, which is Exhibit 8, is the test results from Eurofin. You've seen these, correct?
Correct.
And so we now know that the FDA tested the concentrate, and Eurofins tested the water from these retail bottles, correct?
That is my understanding.
Of the 7 tests taken of the retail bottles, how many identified hydrazine?
Thank you. I don't see the whole list, but there were several of them, probably 7 out of 9 or something like that, that they were able to identify the presence of hydrazine.
And we'll start from the beginning. So there were 7 samples total, and I think you see here the last one, number 7, if I can approach it on.
You may approach, yes.
So you see the last one here, sample 7 and sample 6. Go to the previous slide, Shane. And you'll see sample 1 through 7 here.
Okay.
All right. So it's my understanding, Dr. Najim, that the first 2 samples were below the reporting level, but hydrazine was identified.
That is correct.
Can you explain to the jury what a reporting level means?
Sure. Every instrument has a limit on how low it can measure something in water. And so what you see here, for example, is 0.5 RL. That's the reporting limit of that method and that instrument. And what this is 0.5. This here is micrograms per liter. That means this is, in a microgram, I'm sorry for all this, microgram is 1,000 nanograms. So this is 500 nanograms per liter. It's as low as the instrument can provide you with confident data. So anything below that, the laboratory would say, I cannot tell you how much there is. It might be there, but I cannot tell you. And that's what non-detect means in that case.
Perfect. And then when you go through 3 through 7, it actually shows the results of 1.1, 1.6, 11, 300, and 39. What does that mean? Or can you quantify that for the jury?
Yes. So as I mentioned, this unit of measurement is basically 1,000 nanograms per liter. So what this is 1.1 micrograms per liter, which is 1.1 thousand nanograms per liter. All the way down, the higher number was 300 micrograms per liter, which is 300,000 nanograms per liter. And so these are the quantifiable amounts of hydrazine in the samples that they analyzed.
All right. And in terms of this, we know how high, we've quantified how high the samples were from the FDA and the concentrate. And in terms of the retail bottles, are these also extremely high quantities of hydrazine to be consumed by purchasers?
Extremely is a relative term by anybody's measure. I would say that I would not drink a water that has these hydrazine levels.
Huh. And is it because these hydrogen levels are dangerous?
They are certain, this is a chemical that is harmful above a certain very low threshold, and these are all above that threshold. So to that end,
Yes, sir.
we do not drink that water because of that.
Yes, sir. And then go to the next slide for me, Shane. I wanted the jury to see this. Hey, Shane, go back out so I can see. There we go. Thank you. All right. I wanted to see the date. So March of 21 was when it was collected. You see that?
Yes.
Can you, is there a way to highlight that for the jury, Shane?
It's right here.
All right. And then the date received, March 8th, 2023. So 2 years later, this product was tested after being bottled for 2 years. I want those dates to be seen so we can discuss in a few moments the degradation of hydrazine,
Okay.
all right? Next slide, Shane. So this is the first question you were asked, and then this is your response. Shane? Now, in terms of the first question, you've been able to determine that hydrazine was formed. And then you came up with potential ways how it was formed through this electrolysis process. Can you explain this slide to the jury?
Okay, this I put together to dive into what could be happening inside those tubes. And this is an illustration of that. And I'm not going to go through every detail of it, but the point is this. You have what is called a cathode and an anode, very much like we talked about batteries. And when you charge them with a power source, what happens is the electrons flow to this side and flow out of this side. And what that creates, it creates an electric field that all the ions that are in the water will start getting attracted to and react to. And so what this illustrates was the question, okay, how could hydrazine form in this kind of battery? So I relied on my knowledge of how chemical reactions happen, and I presented some of the possibilities. I have not run a battery like this to look for hydrazine, so this is based on merely my professional opinion as to what could form and how.
Let me stop you right there because you just said something I want to make sure the jury appreciates. In terms of what you've seen from water providers, municipalities, cities, counties, bottled water, other bottled water providers, have you ever seen this approach to making water?
No.
You've never seen anyone use Russian titanium tubes to make water?
I don't know what the citizenship of the tubes is, but I've never seen someone use titanium tubes to make water, no.
Have you ever seen anyone apply electrolysis to tubes to make water?
No.
All right. Now continue. Thank you so much.
And so, to cut it short, this N2H4 is here. And looking at the chemistry and what it needs nitrogen to form. I look for where can nitrogen come from. And the only source of nitrogen that I can see is the nitrogen in the atmosphere. At the end of the day, the air that was breathed is 78% pure nitrogen. And so if that nitrogen is exposed to the high electric charge that is high enough to basically make it react with water and produce hydrazine. So that's one possibility of how hydrazine may have formed in here. There's another possibility, which is that the research that I mentioned earlier was about hydrazine formation from when two chemicals that we use in drinking water treatment, that was my interest in it, which is chlorine and ammonia. They're used to make a disinfectant that is called chloramine. And that disinfectant is used across the country for drinking water disinfection. But the research produced said, with chloramine, if you add chloramine to water at a very high pH, you could form hydrazine. And so I looked for mechanisms that could this be happening here. And what we know on the positive side here, on this anode, that chlorine can form. Because there's chloride in the water from the salts that were added. And you take chloride salt, sodium chloride, table salt, you apply power to it, you generate chlorine. So that chlorine may have come to the side of the cathode to react with ammonia, which is also generated from the atmospheric nitrogen. And so the nitrogen from the ammonia with the chlorine, based on the research that I had done, and the high pH, which is what negative water ends up being. high pH water could have formed hydrazine as well. Which mechanism was critical, which was not, I don't have a way of knowing. I just find these two possible mechanisms for forming hydrazine in this contraption.
Thank you, thank you. Next slide, Shane. So ultimately, in terms of question number 1, this was your response.
Yes, it is my opinion that hydrazine formed within those tubes during the processing of the water, and with most likely source of the nitrogen for the hydrazine being the atmospheric nitrogen.
All right, so let's go to the second question. The hydrazine levels in real water to E2 concentrate. So these are the findings from the FDA, is that correct?
Correct.
The 1.3, the 1.4, and the 1.75, just so the jury knows where it's coming from. Next slide, Shane. Now, does hydrazine degrade over time?
Yes, hydrazine is not a stable chemical. When it's put in water, it can degrade over time. And so that degradation happens because it reacts with oxygen that's in the water, or just by itself, it breaks down as an energetic chemical. It doesn't last forever. It just goes down over time. So it degrades in water.
And so the point that the jury has to understand, that when our clients, these plaintiffs here, consume this water, would the levels of hydrazine been higher than it was when urethans tested 2 years later?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll overrule.
Go right ahead, Dr. Naj.
It is very reasonable to believe that in a 2-year time, what you measure in 2023 is less than what was in the water in 2021. How much less? I cannot tell you, and I'm not going to speculate.
Thank you so much. And your scientific opinion here is based upon your understanding of hydrazine and that the chemical degrades, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. And when we showed the jury the dates of the collection versus the testing, it was roughly a 2-year time period.
Correct.
All right. So in terms of the urethans testing, we had 7 bottles tested by urethans, and we had 3 concentrate samples tested by the FDA, correct?
Correct.
All 10 showed hydrazine, 2 below the reporting level.
Correct.
All right. And would your answers be the same in terms of hydrazine levels degrading, be it 2018, 2019, 2020, whatever time there is between bottling and drinking, there could be degradation.
That would be my expectation, yes.
So whenever they drank the water, it would have been higher than when it was tested later, be it the water or the concentrate.
I would support that, yes.
Okay, and I believe you testified during deposition, Dr. Najim, that it could be as low as 2 times higher or perhaps up to 10 times higher.
My specific words was that it would not, and there's this on the screen, it would not surprise me if it were 2 times or 10 times higher. This is a chemical that degrades, and there are many things that make it degrade slowly or fast. So that concentrate is unique, and I cannot speculate beyond this possible range.
Understood. Next slide, Shane. Next slide, Shane. There we go. So ultimately, this was your response to that question number 2.
Yes.
That hydrazine concentration in the E2 concentrate at the time of production was most likely higher than that measured in the samples analyzed by the FDA, right?
Yes.
Next. All right. Next slide, Shane. And your response was also the same in terms of the final of the 3 questions, in that measured years later, again, it would be, would have degraded over that time.
Yes, you take a chemical like hydrazine in water, you want to know how much it is, you have to analyze it at that time. You let it sit for months and years, it's going to degrade over time.
All right, so we're just about at the end, Dr. Najim. I have a few follow-up questions. In terms of any of your municipalities, cities, counties, any of your clients, have you ever seen this type of process used to create drinking water for humans?
No, I have not.
If any of your clients noticed hydrazine or noticed some complaints, a continuous line of complaints coming in regarding their health in relationship to the water they were drinking, would you advise them to test the water?
That is the first thing you would advise them.
And if you were doing this for Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Los Angeles, would you advise them to retain someone like yourself or some form of consultant to do a thorough examination or investigation of what was causing the problem with their water?
Yes, I would.
Is it fair to say that from 2008 until 2021, when the FDA did its investigation of real water, that the GCMS equipment was available and they could have easily tested that water for less, so somewhere around $200 per test?
The equipment was available and the labs that analyzed samples had them up and running.
If the hydrazine is at a certain level, high levels, could that hydrazine create an aroma, an odor, a chemical smell, or a fishy smell?
The answer to that question very much depends on how much hydrazine is in that water. You notice hydrazine is a nitrogen-based chemical, and ammonia is a nitrogen-based chemical. Proteins are nitrogen-based chemicals. So when you talk about fishy smell, for example, you're smelling a lot of that protein, that nitrogen. And so to the extent that hydrazine can be high enough, it can start smelling as a fishy or as an ammonia type of taste, smell.
All right. And in high enough quantities, can it have form or create some kind of oily sheen on a water product?
That is my understanding of it.
Okay. Dr. Najim, is there a benefit to testing the quality of water?
It is very important to test the quality of water. In fact, every municipal water agency tests water every day for all kinds of things. And so the only way you know if you have a good quality water is by testing it.
Yes, sir. And is it your belief, being this is your specialty, that there's a public health benefit or protection to testing the water that the public's drinking?
You don't need to have a problem to test water. Water testing is the key component of providing safe drinking water, and you have to always be vigilant because you never know when something will show up. So you need to always be tracking chemicals, tracking microorganisms, and looking for them on a continuous basis.
And finally, Dr. Najim, have all your opinions today been to a reasonable degree of engineering or scientific probability?
For sure, yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Najim.
Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yeah,
is this?
sit down.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Go right ahead. I only have to get permission for you to stand up.
Oh,
Sitting
God.
down is free on the
All right.
house.
All right. Can we approach? How long do you think class will be? And I don't want to limit you at all.
I definitely don't have as much as Ted, if you have a number of questions.
Also,
It's all about questions.
All we ask is both sides are telling them there's information. It's not necessarily slow, not to do it. It's right. Just stop. You just wait to open up the
Yeah, you can.
I didn't know it was.
No, we're not. We're not. Continue. Quite a bit. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think what we're going to do at this point, we're going to go ahead and recess and break for lunch. It's my understanding we'll have cross-examination. And then after that, we will, of course, we have a series of questions from the panel, from the jury, and we'll ask the expert those questions, just so you understand. Anyway, remember, you're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to any report or commentary on the trial by any persons connected with this case, or by any medium of information, including without limitations, newspaper, television, radio, social media. Remember that prohibition. Also remember the issue regarding other forms such as newspaper, television, radio, social media. And last but not least, do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with the trial until the cause is finally submitted to you. All right, and let me see. 1:30.
1:30, Your Honor. All rise to the jury.
And is the jury here?
Yes, Your Honor. You're ready.
Okay,
I can line them up. Lining the jury up now, Your Honor.
let's go on the record.
We are on the record, Your Honor.
All right. Let's go ahead and set forth our appearances.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Teddy Parker on behalf of the plaintiff.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Robert Eglin on behalf of plaintiff.
Maggie DeFederico on behalf of the plaintiffs. Brianna Sensler on behalf of the plaintiffs.
Eric Pepperman for plaintiffs.
Brad Johnson, Eric Freeman, Tyler Watson, and Michael Esposito on behalf of the defendants.
All right, I guess we're ready to continue. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Just need the jury.
All right. Party stipulate to the presence of the jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hope you enjoyed your lunch. And it's my understanding we're going to continue with examination of this witness. And right now we're going to start cross-examination. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank
you. Good afternoon, Dr. Najam. Hope you had a good lunch.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you talked extensively about your background in environmental and civil engineering, but you don't have a degree in chemistry, that's right?
That is correct.
Okay. Have you done much consulting with bottled water companies?
I have done consulting with bottled water companies.
In the last 10 years?
Not to my recollection. no.
Okay. Now, we talked about your research projects that you did back in 2006 and 2011. Besides this case, have you done any additional work on hydrazine?
I have not.
So nothing in the last 12, 13 years?
That is correct.
We talked about your research papers. Were these research papers peer-reviewed by the scientific community?
Which research papers?
We'll start with the one in 2006.
You mean the research reports?
Research report, yes.
They were reviewed by a project advisory committee that the funding agency puts together.
Okay, but it didn't go through the peer review process that's done in the scientific community?
It was not a journal publication, so it did not go through that process.
Okay. Now, both of these papers were based on research at water treatment facilities. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, it was one of them?
There were samples collected from water treatment facilities, but the research itself was conducted in the laboratory that I work at.
Okay, I asked that incorrectly. The water tested and researched came from water treatment facilities.
In the second research, yes,
Okay, it didn't come from a bottled water facility.
that is correct.
Okay. Do you know what concentrate of hydrazine would have to be for hydrazine to be visible in water?
I do not have a number, no.
Is that something outside of your expertise?
I don't know anyone who has a number that defines when hydrazine is visible. But I certainly do not have that number.
Okay. Did you look at, you were talking about this water here. This is the retail bottle. Did you see anything that resembled hydrazine in the water when you looked at it?
I have not looked at any of the products myself.
Okay, you didn't do any testing on the water yourself?
I did not test any of the water myself.
Okay. Did you ever inspect the real water facility?
I did not.
Okay. Did you ask to do that as part of your work?
I did not.
Did you ever inspect any of the equipment used at the real water facility?
I did not.
Okay. And so none of the equipment from real water was provided to you so you could look at in your office or lab?
That is correct.
Did you ever speak with anyone at real water?
I did not.
Did you, we talked about the water, did you set up any type of experiments or lab testing on real water?
I did not.
Now, real water performed testing on their final product. Is that your understanding?
They performed some testing, yes.
Okay, and so the water that came into the facility would have been from a municipal water source?
That is my understanding.
In this case, the Las Vegas Valley Water District?
That is my understanding.
Okay. And that water, when it came in, would have been treated and tested because that's the same water that comes out of everyone's faucet when they turn it on in their home?
That is correct.
Okay. And then real water tested their final product as well?
They tested for a few parameters, yes.
What, can you explain the testing that they did?
They tested the pH of the water. They tested the salinity of the water. And they tested for bacteria in the water.
Okay. They also tested for, oh, didn't mean to cut you off, I'm sorry.
I don't recall the whole test. This is what I recall.
Okay. Multiple tests.
There were other parameters that I don't remember.
Okay. Tests for metals, for example?
I do not recall seeing any metals analysis.
You mentioned bacteria and other contaminants as well?
There were others that I don't recall what they
Okay.
were.
But basically, if someone said real water performed no testing, that would be incorrect, wouldn't it?
If someone said exactly those words, that would be incorrect.
Okay, no testing.
If they said no testing without saying for what, then that would be a correct statement.
Okay. You've gone through here and discussed for us the process of making the E2 concentrate. Bless you. Again, going back, the water comes from a municipal source, and you talked about adding some salts and minerals to the water, and that's just to adjust the water chemistry. Would you agree?
Correct.
Okay. They didn't put dangerous amounts of minerals or salts in the water.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. This just adjusts the pH.
And salinity.
Okay. You see on bottled water, you buy at the store, they'll say minerals added for taste, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay. After that, they purify the water and take multiple steps. And I want to ask you about that process. Is that something that you reviewed?
You mean on the municipal water?
Yes.
Yes.
They went through a purification process.
Correct.
Okay. And that was, there was a filtration process with activated carbon. Can you explain what that is?
Yes, activated carbon is a product that removes chlorine from water. So if water is coming in, it's similar to the material that's in the refrigerator filter.
Okay, thank you. There was also something called UV disinfection.
Yes.
What is that?
UV light is a disinfectant, so it can neutralize any microorganisms that pass through.
Okay, and that's part of that was part of Real Water's filtration process?
As I understand it, that is part of the filter system that they used, yes.
Okay. There was also reverse osmosis. What is that for?
Reverse osmosis, again, like some homes put a reverse osmosis system, is to remove any salts from the water.
Okay. You were contacted to investigate how hydrazine got into the real water, and you came up with 2 hypotheses that you've explained today. I want to ask you a little bit more about that. The first theory is that nitrogen that's in the air became soluble in water, and then during the electrolysis process, the nitrogen bonded with hydrogen, and that created the hydrazine.
That is one hypothesis, yes.
Okay, one of your hypotheses.
Yes.
Okay. This isn't a process of how people who intentionally are making hydrazine go about making it, is it?
No.
Okay. This was a fluke, not intended.
Chemistry is chemistry. So this is the hypothesis of how nitrogen gas from the air became hydrazine.
Okay, but you would agree Real Water was not a hydrazine making plant.
No, that's speculation.
I understand.
Would you agree that no one was trying to create hydrazine that was in the water?
I'm sorry, Mr. Wait till your question back. No, that causes speculation as well.
All right. And the second theory is hydrazine was created by a chemical reaction between ammonia and chlorine. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And in your opinion, is that the formation of this hydrazine was created by one of these 2 possible chemical reactions?
Or both.
Okay, so it could have happened by theory 1, it could have happened by theory 2, or a combination of the 2 theories together?
Chemical reactions happen in parallel. So one of them may have contributed 90%, the other one may have contributed 10%. What was formed, that is a research question I don't have the answer to.
Okay, so the exact, these were theories of yours, the exact reaction that happened, you don't know for sure.
I do not know.
Okay, I think you said you answered the question to the best you could.
Yes.
Prior to this case, have you ever seen hydrazine appear in a bottled water product?
No.
Would you agree it was surprising?
That's an understatement, yes.
Okay. I think you testified earlier that hydrazine's not a common chemical found in drinking water.
Correct.
And that it rarely occurs.
To my knowledge, correct.
And it's not even on the radar of the regulatory people who cover water.
I don't know what's on their radar. I have not seen a process in place that someone is looking to regulate it.
Okay. Just because it's so rare and uncommon?
I'm assuming that's why, but the regulators have their own thought process.
Okay. Did you perform any tests or experiments to test any of these theories?
I have not.
Pardon me. Dry out. You talked a little bit about the FDA findings. Did you review the FDA's investigations and tests that they perform?
I did.
Okay. Do you know, when did the FDA receive the water samples?
I don't recall, but I think it was 2021. But
Okay.
I may be wrong.
Early, like in March?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know when they found the hydrazine?
It would be in the report. I don't remember the date.
Okay. But the FDA performed a number of labs in testing of the water before they found the hydrazine.
That is my understanding, yes.
It wasn't easy to do or easy to find?
I don't know what easy means. The FDA analyzed 3 concentrate samples, and they found it in the 3 concentrate samples.
And it took a while to find that.
I don't know how long it took them to find it.
Have you seen any scientific literature linking the use of titanium to the creation of hydrazine from room air?
I have not.
Have you recommended to any of your clients to routinely test for hydrazine in the past?
I don't know anyone who uses this process, so I have not.
Okay. During your career as an expert dealing with hydrazine, have you ever heard of nitrogen from room air dissolving in water and resulting in hydrazine?
Nitrogen in room air dissolves in water all the time. That's a given. That's why water has oxygen. That's why water has nitrogen. So dissolving gas into water is a standard principle. The formation of the hydrazine is not.
Okay.
Is not one that I've seen in that fashion before.
Okay. That's not a common occurrence.
In typical water treatment, that is not a common occurrence.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Najim.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Bonnar?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes.
Shane, do me a favor, put up slide 20 on the screen for everyone. Let's answer some questions, Dr. Najim, that Mr. Freeman asked right off the bat. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, I didn't say it, but good afternoon. Ready? Perfect. Okay, perfect. So the date that the results came in, October 2021. See that?
That is the date on the FDA report.
All right, go to the next page. Date received, may I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
March 30th, 2021.
Correct.
All right, so few months or almost a year from the time they started the investigation. I'm sorry, 3/21 and October 21, 7 months, a little less than 7 months, correct?
Correct.
Real Water was making that product since 2008. Did it take them 13 years to determine that the hydrazine was in the water?
I don't know if they ever determined that there's hydrazine in their water.
In fact, Dr. Najim, has Real Water put forth a single expert to refute your opinions in this case that you're aware of?
I have not seen that presented, no.
Have you seen an expert from Real Water come in and come up with their own conclusions as to how they put hydrazine or how hydrazine came to be in their product?
I have not seen that.
Has Real Water had an expert call you and say, Dr. Najim, we know you got these publications on hydrazine. We'd like to collaborate to figure out how did we get hydrazine in our water. Has that happened?
No.
Mr. Freeman's questions to you regarding whether or not one hypothesis over another was correct, based upon your investigation, are those the most likely ways that hydrazine was created?
This was an assessment of information and providing an opinion. There was no experimental work done. So this is my best attempt at explaining why water goes in with no hydrazine, comes out with tons of hydrazine.
That's right. And there's not a single, to your knowledge, not a single real water expert that has offered any competing theories on how they placed or how hydrogen was found in their water, correct?
I have not seen or heard of one.
So Mr. Freeman asked you about UV testing. Does UV testing have anything to do with hydrazine?
In my opinion, that filtration system is not relevant to the conversation. That filtration system coming out of it, I would venture to say there's no hydrazine in the water coming out of that filtration system.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman asked you about investigations. Have you seen any documentation where Real Water actually did an investigation of its water product?
Not that I have seen.
Have you seen any documentation, information from your review of the records that Real Water did any additional testing, GCMS testing, on their product despite years of medical complaints?
I have not seen any testing work.
So when Mr. Freeman asked you whether or not someone said there was no testing, is it fair to say that Real Water did not do any non-targeted GCMS testing, the same kind that the FDA did, on its water product?
That is my understanding. My answer to the question was about just the statement, did Real Water do any testing? Yes, you can test for pH. That doesn't mean anything for our conversation. But I was trying to be true to the question.
All right, so let's make it true, fully true to the question. When it comes to testing for liver toxins like hydrazine, did they do a single test that would have found hydrazine?
Not that I know.
All right. Mr. Freeman asked you whether or not you did an investigation. Remember that question?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that the FDA, the CDC, and the Southern Nevada Health District performed an investigation?
Yes,
Did you review the results of their investigation?
I did.
Do you question the validity of the samples taken of the concentrate by the FDA?
I have no reason to.
Do you have any reason to question the validity of the test done by the Eurofins laboratories on the
I have no
retail
reason.
lots?
I'm sorry, I have no reason to.
Do you need the test after getting those reputable results?
No, and I was not asked to do that.
All right. In the FDA report, Doctor, as a part of their investigation, do you recall the FDA determining that Real Water failed to disclose their manufacturing process?
I do not recall any material on that aspect.
All right. Let me see if I can help you remember. Do you recall that there was a secret room or a room that they were used to do their process, the one we went through earlier today?
Objection exceeds the scope.
Your Honor, he opened the door by talking about the investigation.
Talk about testing too.
Absolutely.
Overall.
Thank you, Your Honor.
It was actually from reading the testimonies and the depositions at the time that there was a room where the recipe is put together in the containers that was sort of a private room where the water goes in,
That's right.
stuff is added, and not everybody had access to the recipe because it was their proprietary claim to fame.
When you're being asked as a consultant or someone working on behalf of a municipality, are they hiding their process from you when you're trying to determine water quality?
Objection calls for speculation.
He's doing the testing.
I understand. Ask them, have they?
Have they hid their process when you've been hired to examine the quality of their water?
No.
Is it fair to say that you cannot determine the quality of their water if they hide the process?
They wouldn't hire me if they're going to hide the process.
That's right. Isn't it fair to say if you're concerned about the public health, you don't hide the process from the FDA, the CDC, and the Southern Nevada Health District?
That's a reasonable statement, yes.
No further questions, John.
All right, Doctor, we do have some questions from members of the jury, and then there might be a follow-up from counsel after they're done. But we have one question, and this is the first. And it's from juror number 6, Mr., is that McConey?
McCain.
McCaney, thank you, sir, for helping me with that. For my juror number 6, Mr. McCaney. And here's the question, sir. Quote, what would be the proper way to produce negative, in parentheticals, alkaline water?
There are two parts to that question. One is when you describe it as negative water, and when you describe it as alkaline water. Those are really two different things. Okay, so there are products on the market that are alkaline water. And those are basically waters that simply a caustic or a chemical is added to them to raise the pH. That's what makes them alkaline. So those are common out there. A negative water is one where you are doing this type of electrolysis on it to generate a negative water. Okay? But that is the only way I can answer the question about the negative part. The alkaline part is easy. It's a chemical addition part.
All right, thank you. And we have another question from juror number 4, Mr. Dixon. Quote, is it possible for hydrazine to go undetected in drinking water if the quantity of hydrazine is low enough?
Oh, absolutely. It can be at fairly high concentrations, but it's dissolved in the water and you would not know it. You would not taste it, you would not smell it, but it would be above what someone would deem to be a safe level, for sure.
And there's a follow-up from Mr. Dixon. Quote, would hydrazine still be considered harmful if the quantity is low enough?
I'm not a toxicologist, so I got to say that up front. The challenge is, what is the meaning of the word harmful? You know, you can go harmful from convulsing when you drink it versus harmful where it slowly causes you disease over time. That is a wide range. So, you know, where do you define that floor of saying above that is harmful, below is not harmful? Depends on how you're looking at it. So the number that I mentioned to you, the 10 to the minus 6 cancer risk level, that is what in the regulatory world it's called the de minimis level. That means it is the level below which the effect is insignificant. And that's the best way I can answer that question, is that 10 nanograms per liter is considered to be the cutoff where below it the effect is not significant on humans.
All right. We have another question from panel member number 4, Mr. Dixon. Quote, were samples 1 and 2 tested differently compared to the other samples?
No, they were analyzed with the same method. The challenge here is that a again, it was a couple of years later. So one bottle may have some left in it, another bottle may not have some that you can measure. That's expected.
All right, sir, we have one more, doctor, from Mr. Dixon, number 4. Quote, during your research of hydrazine, how much of it would have to be in normal water to be considered harmful?
So we're back to the harmful question, and that's really where that 10 number is. You know, we all need numbers to work with. You know, what is okay, what's not okay. Right now, that is the number that's out there for us to judge whether, you know what, I need to do something to reduce it, or that's below what that minimum floor is.
All right, and that's it for questions. Any follow-up, Mr. Parker?
Just one, Your Honor. Dr. Najim, given your responses to those jury questions, which were all very good, 10 minus 6 is the number you've given us as a threshold for concern about health. Based upon the test results we've seen with Eurofins testing and then the FDA testing on the concentrate, those results were 1 billion times greater than 10 to the minus 6?
The ones in the concentrate, yes.
No further questions. Thank you.
Do you know if anyone drank the E2 concentrate straight?
I don't know.
Now, you were asked some questions about the ways of making alkaline water. You've never been involved in or consulted with a company that makes alkaline water, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And they asked, is there proper or improper ways to make alkaline water? In your understanding and expertise, is there's many ways and processes to make an alkaline water product, is that right?
That's not what I said. What I said is that the alkaline component of this question, that's by adding a chemical that is an alkaline chemical to the water.
But different companies make alkaline water in different ways.
That's their claim to their proprietary product, yes.
All right, thank you very much, doctor.
Thank you.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Oh, sorry.
Okay. And our next witness will be?
Your Honor, we would call Dr. Mahajan to the stand. Your Honor, we approach you.
Yeah, we.
Your Honor, we would call Dr. Mahajan to the stand.
Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that.
Please do. And please, please, your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you are about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? May I have you state and spell your name for the record?
My name is Jay, J-A-Y. Last name is Mahajan, I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I didn't hear with all of that.
First name is Jay, J-A-Y. Last name is Mahajan, M-A-H-A-J-A-N.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Mahajan.
Good afternoon.
Dr. Mahajan, would you please tell the jury what specialty of medicine do you practice?
I practice neurology, general neurology.
Can you please describe your educational background for us?
So I received my Bachelor's of Arts in Biological Sciences at USC, University of Southern California. And then I went on to get my medical degree at Terrell University of Nevada here in town. And then
Where did you
continued.
do your internship and residency training?
I did my traditional internship year over at Valley Hospital here in town, and then continued with the neurology residency after that.
And are you board certified?
I am.
And what does it mean to be board certified?
To be board certified means that there is a medical specialty board that has very stringent testing that you have to pass in order to become a specialist in the field.
And in what area are you board certified?
In neurology.
Okay. Do you belong to any professional memberships?
I do. I belong to the American Academy of Neurology, as well as the American Osteopathic Association.
Have you written articles?
Yes, I have. I've written several articles that have been published in the Journal of American Osteopathic Association.
And have you been an investigator on any research-related projects to MG?
Yes, I have. I just wrapped up a research study by a company called Lexion for a drug that was recently approved and is being used in patients now for myasthenia gravis.
So yeah, MG is myasthenia gravis.
Yes.
You'd like to say that, yes. Doctor, how many years have you been practicing now?
A little over 10 years now.
You look awfully young. You've been practicing 10 years.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Do you have hospital privileges?
I do. I have privileges in all the Valley Health System hospitals. I believe that's a total of 6 hospitals, and Mountain View, so a total of 7 hospitals in the Valley.
Okay. And what are hospital privileges? What does that mean exactly?
That means you have to apply for privileges. You get approved to be able to see patients at that location, at that hospital. And we take call for several hospitals in town, so you have to meet standards to be able to care for patients at the facilities.
And where are you currently employed? Are you with the group?
Yes, I am a partner at Las Vegas Neurology Center.
Okay. And would you please detail for us the scope of your practice as a neurologist?
Sure. So I'm a general neurologist, so I do a little bit of everything, which is what I enjoy. We treat everything from strokes to brain bleeds in the hospital setting and outpatient in the clinic. We do migraine headaches. We treat Parkinson's disease. We deal with MG or myasthenia gravis. We deal with ALS, dementias. We do everything from treating issues with the nervous system, including nerve damage, issues with balance and memory.
Okay. And are you one of Lisa King's treating physicians, Doctor?
I am.
Okay. And what have you reviewed in preparation for your testimony today?
So I've reviewed my clinic notes, all of my clinic notes. I tend to, if I have a patient, I tend to gather notes from hospitals, including Centennial Hills and other hospitals. It's kind of my standard practice to get all the information I can for my patients to review. I've gone over...
Do you gather records from other physicians who have treated her before you with respect to the same symptoms you're now treating before?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and did you gather those?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I went over Lisa's records from her ENT, her infectious disease doctor. I also reviewed records pertaining to Lisa from her allergist as well. I took a look at records from Quest labs that were done, as well as records from her physical therapy at Lyons as well.
And is Dr. Anjum, is that her?
That's her primary care physician, forgive me.
Primary care.
I also took a look at Dr. Anjum's records as well.
And what about the Mayo Clinic records?
Yes, I requested those and reviewed those as well.
Okay. And in preparation for your testimony today, did you meet with me?
Yes.
And when did you meet with me?
I met with you on Monday for approximately 1 hour and on Wednesday for approximately 1 hour.
Okay, so last night.
Yes.
Okay. Let me back up a little bit. What about Dr. Heisen? Did you obtain and review his records as part of your?
I did. I also, forgive me, I also reviewed Dr. Heisen's records. He is a former neurologist that Lisa was seeing prior to seeing me.
All right. Now, did you have the opportunity to examine, evaluate, and provide medical treatment for Lisa for her myasthenia gravis?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you first begin treating Lisa?
I believe it was May 19th, 2019.
Is it May 21st?
Oh, May 21st, excuse me,
Yeah.
May 21st, 2019. Forgive me.
And how many times have you seen Lisa since your evaluation on May 21st, 2019?
A total of 27 times.
Brendan, could you bring up, please, Exhibit 1033, page 3?
That's not admitted.
All those exhibits are admitted.
Yeah, but we didn't formally go over which ones, number by number.
And we can't do that right now. Just
Can I go forward? Thank you, Your Honor.
We can't do that. You can take care of it afterwards. We can't do it right now. Let's go.
All right, thank you, Judge. I'd like you to take the jury through Lisa's myasthenia gravis symptoms leading up to seeing you on May 21st, 2019. When did Lisa's MG symptoms first begin?
So according to this note by Dr. Heisen, who's also a neurologist in town who's now retired, but on October 1st, 2018, Lisa presented with complaints of sudden onset of tremors in her body that started approximately 5 to 6 weeks prior to presenting to his clinic.
So the symptoms would have, if this is October 1st, 5 to 6 weeks, the symptoms would have been September, August of 2018.
Correct.
Okay. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1050, page 1. Did she complain of tremors to any of her doctors?
Yes, this is a record from Dr. Seema Anjum, who was her PCP at the time, on February 14, 2019. She followed up for tremors in the hands as well as light tremors.
Okay. Brendan, could you please bring up Exhibit 1029, page 20? What other MG symptoms was Lisa complaining of during this time?
Well, she was having, she saw Joel Katz on March 27th, 2019. He's an allergist, and basically she's complaining of swelling to the cheeks, pain in the face at that time.
Okay. And Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1022, 1029, page 21. And what symptoms was she having at this time on April 19th, 2019?
At that time, she started having kind of more systemic symptoms. She was having fatigue, itching, swelling again in the face, and some other parts of her body.
Okay. And Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1050, page 3. And then, does this document any other symptoms she was having?
Yeah, so she saw Dr. Anjum again, went back to see her PCP, April 22nd, 2019. She started having some palpitations, which are having like a fast heart rate, and also some throat discomfort.
Okay, Brendan, could you bring up Exhibit 1036, page 6, please? Can you tell us what symptoms are documented here by Dr. Sykand on April 21st, 2019?
Sure. So Dr. Sykand's an ear, nose, and throat doctor. She started to experience dyspnea, which is shortness of breath, and some episodes of choking at that time.
And Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1030, pages 20 through 21. And on May 14th, 2019, it looks like she saw Dr. Costello, or Angela Costello, is that correct?
Correct. So Angela Costello noted that she was having some left arm pain. She'd been complaining about 2 months, it started 2 months before to seeing her in May of 2019.
Okay. And was she from the clinical infectious disease specialist?
Yeah, so she's part of the team over at the infectious disease doctor's office.
Brendan, could you pull up Exhibit 1037, page 19 and 21, please? When did she next go to the doctor for her myasthenia gravis symptoms?
So this is where she followed up at my office on May 21st, 2019. She had...
What were her complaints or chief complaints at this first appointment?
Yeah, at that point, she was experiencing dysesthesia, which was lack of sensation to the face. She was having general shaking, diffuse shaking, meaning shaking throughout the body, and having issues with some tingling sensations on both sides of the face as well.
And the shaking, is that tremors? That's what's described as tremors in the record?
Yes, we describe it as tremors, and tremors can be caused by different things. So in her case, she was having her muscles that were shaking throughout her whole body.
Can you please explain, okay, so after you completed your initial evaluation of Lisa, what was your assessment?
So we came with the assessment at the time with the information that they had that she had a facial nerve injury. The facial nerves travel through the face, and that's the area where she was having the discomfort, and also a tremor of unknown origin.
And was that a working, what's called in your profession, a working diagnosis?
Correct. So
What does that
usually
mean?
a working diagnosis is what we believe it may be until we have more information.
Okay.
So,
And what were your plans for Lisa at that time?
the thought was myasthenia gravis, and so we sent some labs out. We sent what's called a myasthenia gravis panel out to check and see if that's what she had.
Could you bring up Exhibit 1034, page 13, please, Brendan? And what does a myasthenia gravis blood panel test for?
Well, it tests for proteins that the body creates that affect the transmission of signals between muscles, basically. So these are antibodies, is what they're called, certain proteins. And so it tests for levels of antibodies within the patient's blood.
Is that what's referred to as the AChR binding antibody?
Correct. So that's acetylcholine receptor binding antibody specifically.
What was the results of that test?
Her labs were elevated, which confirms a diagnosis of myasthenia gravis.
And so it confirms the diagnosis of myasthenia gravis. In normal, what was her levels, and what is a normal range?
So a normal range would be 0.31 to 0.49. Her levels were 17.
Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1037, page 80. What did you diagnose Lisa with based on the results of this blood test?
We diagnosed her with myasthenia gravis.
Was your diagnosis based on any other factors? And Brendan, if you could bring up the slides relevant to this.
So we always look at labs that helps us guide, but the main thing is clinically also what's happening with her when we do physical examinations, what complaints she's had. So in her case, she had symptoms affecting her vision. She had symptoms affecting her musculoskeletal system, which includes, muscles in her arms, her back, her spine, hands, feet. It also can affect what are called bulbar muscles, which are muscles in your head and neck. Those muscles are responsible for talking, chewing, swallowing, and that can really affect, and even in severe cases, obviously, it can also affect your diaphragm. It can affect your breathing as well.
Can you kind of describe for the jury explain what myasthenia gravis is?
So essentially what happens is muscles and muscle junctions, which are the muscle cells, communicate with each other, and through this chronic autoimmune process, certain proteins.
Is it a chronic autoimmune disease?
It is,
Okay,
yes.
go ahead, doctor, sorry.
So no, it's okay. Through this process, basically, proteins are created that disrupt the signal between those muscles. So over time, as these proteins build up in the system, it can cause an issue and affect you in a multitude of ways.
Does it cause the body's immune system to mistakenly attack proteins in the neuromuscular junction where the nerves connect to the muscles?
That's correct, it does.
Okay. And what does this result in?
It can result in difficulty with walking, climbing stairs, issues with even raising your hands up. You can have problems with speaking, swallowing, chewing.
And does it result in skeletal muscle weakness?
It does, yes. It can make you very weak, generally.
And can it also cause weakness in the respiratory muscles?
Yes, that's the most concerning, symptom someone can have. Your diaphragm, which is responsible for your breathing, can be affected. And if that wears out, then you're not able to breathe, and you could end up on a respirator and even die.
Okay. And I think you have gone over with us what functions myasthenia gravis can impair, and you said I think affect your ability to chew, swallow,
Speak.
talk, walk.
Even walk, yes.
Okay. Do patients often have trouble climbing stairs with
They
myasthenia
do.
gravis.
Getting up from a seated position, climbing stairs becomes difficult. As I mentioned, raising your arms above your head. Simple movements like that we take for granted can become very difficult. For
And
these
what are the
patients.
common symptoms of myasthenia gravis?
You can have tremors. You can have diffuse muscle weakness. You can have issues with swallowing. You can have tightness in your throat. Vision changes.
Slurred speech,
Slurred speech.
droopy eyelids,
And droopy eyelids, correct.
and you have limited facial expression ability.
It can, because your muscles in your face can get weak.
To help the jury understand, does myasthenia gravis mimic any other known neurological disorders?
It does. It can mimic ALS, which is a very devastating disease that also affects the peripheral nervous system. Lou Gehrig's disease, you may have heard it, but it has similar, symptoms to that.
Doctor, I'm gonna, Your Honor, may I have Dr. Mahajan come out of the box for just a moment?
You may step down.
I'm gonna have you come down here for a second, if you don't mind. And, got this diagram we copied out of a book or off the internet or something like that. And, this picture of the body, human body. And can you please illustrate for the jury the various areas of the body MG affects using this diagram?
Sure, absolutely. So, as we kind of discussed, it can affect the eyebrows and cause ptosis, which is drooping of the eyelids, which can affect your vision. You're able to drive, you can't do any simple reading. It can affect your eyes, and it'll cause double vision, blurry vision issues there. It can definitely affect.
Let me see if I can get you a little better marker. That one seems to be a little bit dull.
It can affect your ability to chew. It can cause facial pain, as well as issues with swallowing, which is a big problem because if you can't swallow properly, food can end up in your lungs and cause infections and so on and so forth. It can affect all the muscles in your neck, and your neck can feel heavy. It's difficult to hold your head up at times. And then down the arms, in multiple areas, you can have muscle weakness. Down the spine, it can affect you. And then down the legs, and weakness in the hands and the feet. The scariest part can be, the diaphragm itself, which is a muscle right here in the chest that, can cause breathing, and so that can really be affected as well. It can be life-threatening.
And doctor, how many areas of Lisa's body has her MG affected?
Lisa's been affected in all these areas.
And would that be negatively affected?
Negatively affected in all these areas.
All right, thank you. Please sit back down. May I approach, Your Honor? Your Honor, I would ask that this be marked as plaintiff's Exhibit 1204, which is next in order for identification.
All right, we can have a mark.
I'd like it later.
We'll give it back to you. Did you put the sticker on it?
No, I'll do that later.
Okay, Your Honor, at this time, I would move for admission in plaintiff's Exhibit 1204.
No objection. Shall be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Dr. Mahajan. Dr. Mahajan, can a patient die from myasthenia gravis?
Yes, patients can die, usually from a respiratory issue. If they stop breathing, obviously not get oxygen, and don't make it to the hospital in time, that can lead to death.
Can patients end up on a ventilator from myasthenia gravis?
Yes, they can. So with myasthenia gravis, you can have something called an exacerbation, which means your body starts kind of shutting down, the muscles start getting weaker and weaker. In those severe situations, patients end up in the hospital. And if not caught in a timely manner, a ventilator needs to be placed to help them breathe.
And what is a symptom of someone's throat closing who has myasthenia gravis?
So when that happens, that becomes difficult to breathe. Also, that feeling of, the bulbar feeling of choking is often a common complaint with these patients as well.
Is this a constant complaint of Lisa's?
It is, every day.
What treatment did you recommend for Lisa at this time?
Initially, I recommended a medication called proteostigmine. It's a medicine that allows the communication between those muscle junctions to work more effectively.
Did she take this medication?
She tried it, but she had difficulties tolerating it.
Why is that?
Due to her autoimmune hepatitis, from a GI standpoint, she had a hard time tolerating that medication.
Brendan, could you bring up Exhibit 1030, page 18, please? How did Lisa's MG symptoms progress following her initial appointment with you?
So she went and saw Dr. Deval Shaw, who's part of the infectious disease team, on May 29th, 2019, and she complained of continued fatigue and dizziness when she saw him.
Okay. Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1038, page 383, please. Can you tell us what was going on here on June 10th, 2019 with her?
So Lisa was sent out to Mayo Clinic for further evaluation for the myasthenia gravis. Oftentimes, I'll ask, some larger tertiary centers where there are neuromuscular specialists in cases like this to, to get some feedback and work with them. And they when she presented in June 10th, 2019, she had difficulty swallowing when she saw the doctor there.
Okay. Brendan, let's bring up Exhibit 1037, pages 77 and 79. When did you see Lisa next, doctor?
So she followed up on June 19th, 2019. At the time, she continued to have numbness, dysesthesia in the face with the generalized shaking.
The diffuse shaking or tremors?
Tremors throughout the whole body, yes.
What was your assessment at that time?
Again, facial nerve injury was part of the assessment.
Now, why was this working diagnosis still in your assessment when at this point you had diagnosed her with myasthenia gravis?
So, the pain that she was having, we wanted to differentiate whether the nerves in the face were also affected at the time or not.
Brendan, could you bring up Exhibit 1037, pages 73 and 75, please? When was Lisa's next appointment with you, doctor?
She followed up on June 24th, 2019.
What was her symptoms, complaints at this appointment?
She also had diffuse tremors in her body with the dysesthesias in the face and numbness in the face. She had some neck heaviness that she had recently been to Summerlin Hospital for.
She having tightening in her neck?
Tightening in her neck.
Difficulty
weakness.
Breathing?
Yep, difficulty breathing, fullness in her throat.
What did you do at that time?
I actually, at the time, we wanted to monitor her closely.
Well, she had been to Summerlin Hospital before you saw her. I guess I misunderstood.
Yeah, so she went to Summerlin Hospital several days before with the complaints. She was evaluated. They did not admit her at the time. And so we kind of evaluated her in office, and I asked her to present to the hospital if anything got worse.
Did she also complain of vocal cord weakness and fatigue at that time?
Yes, she did.
Okay. What was your assessment at this appointment?
Still facial nerve injury because of the pain she was having in her face, myasthenia gravis, and the neck stiffness that she was complaining about.
Okay. Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1039, page 29, please. Now, you mentioned that she visited Summerlin Hospital a few days before you saw her. Was she admitted?
She was not.
Okay. Now, the day after her appointment with you on June 25th, 2019, was there somewhere you sent her?
Yes, I sent her to Centennial Hills Hospital due to her worsening symptoms.
Was this a myasthenia, what you called a flare-up?
Yes, this is a flare-up, or what we call an exacerbation.
Okay. And was this primarily due to the tightening sensation in her throat, among her other symptoms?
Yes, the weakness, the tightening sensation of her throat, the culmination of symptoms. My fear was that things were going to continue to decline and she'd be at risk.
And did they admit Lisa to the hospital that day?
They did.
Okay. And what causes Lisa's MG flare-ups or exacerbations?
So MG flare-ups can be caused by anything from stress to infection, Sometimes surgeries can trigger these exacerbations. Medications sometimes can actually trigger the exacerbations. But the scary part is it can happen for no reason at all.
I'm having the same problem you were having.
Yeah, that's why I just don't even use it anymore. Learn my lesson.
I don't know if you need it, Mr. Gagnon.
You don't think I need it? That's fine with me. And what, please bring up Exhibit 1039, page 302, Brendan. What treatment did you give her for her exacerbation at the hospital at that time?
I gave her a treatment called IVIG for a period of 3 days.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury what IVIG therapy is?
So IVIG therapy is intravenous immunoglobulin therapy. So it's basically proteins that we have in our tissues and in our blood that act to fight infection. And so this is used to treat exacerbations, to basically kind of dull the process that's going on.
Does it help to dampen the immune system?
It does.
Okay. And our antibodies, are they the natural proteins in your body that it makes to help you fight infections?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And is this IVIG typically administered in several rounds over 3 days?
It is typically, typically patients get anywhere from 3 to 5 days of treatment in the hospital.
Okay. And what is the IVG made from? How does it?
So the IVIG is actually it's from people that donate plasma, basically. So it's the plasma is gathered and basically it's put through a stringent kind of clearing process, and it's isolated from a pool of on average of 8,000 donors, basically. So we pull all that.
8,000 blood donors.
Correct.
Donated their plasma.
Yes.
Okay. Does IVIG carry a risk of transmitting a viral infection via the donor's antibodies it contains?
Yes, there is a risk. Modern technology is pretty good, but there's no guarantee. So the risks of viruses like HIV, hepatitis B, even something called prion disease, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CKJ can be transmitted.
What is that?
It's something commonly known as mad cow disease. It's a prion disease that can actually be transmitted as well. It causes neurological weakness, a quick mental decline, and usually demise for these patients.
Demise, death.
Death.
Okay. Now, there are screening techniques they use.
Yes.
Okay. Do these screening tests eliminate all risk?
Not all risk.
Okay. Is there also a risk that a donor's blood contains an infection that wasn't caught by screening procedures because it was an unknown disease, like in early 2020?
Yes, so things like COVID, we didn't know much about it. So there's always risk for some of these viruses passing through that we don't know much about.
And can it also be not caught in a screening procedure because the donor's infection was too early in its stage to be picked up?
Yes, that's a possibility as well.
Does Lisa experience any side effects from IVIG therapy?
She does.
What are those?
It takes a toll on her body. She feels flu-like symptoms. She feels really tired and fatigued after the infusions, and also she experiences migraines.
Can that last days or a week or so?
Yeah, it can last days to a week plus.
Pull up shows exhibit 1048, page 1, please, Brendan. Did Lisa's symptoms resolve after that hospitalization?
No, they did not.
And what, here on August 1st, 2019, what symptoms were documented at Lyons Physical Therapy?
So she presented to her physical therapist. They noticed that she was having difficulty breathing, in addition to difficulty with swallowing. They also noticed some facial twitching that was going on at that time, and some what she described as internal tremors.
And Brendan, please bring up exhibit 1037, page 61. When did you next see Lisa after the hospital stay that we just went over?
So I saw her on August 22nd, 2019. And at that time, she was having difficulty with swallowing. She complained of issues with what's called hypophonia. The vocal cord muscles get weak. So when you talk, it's very soft. You can't speak loudly. It becomes very difficult to do that. She also complained of facial twitching, which she had complained of at her physical therapy appointment prior to that, and pressure in her neck as well.
Muscle spasms?
Yes, muscle spasms. And blurry vision.
And was she having pressure in her neck over the carotid arteries?
Correct, on the sides here, she was complaining of.
What are the carotid arteries?
The carotid arteries are one of the larger arteries that supply blood to your brain. And so she was having some pressure and discomfort in those areas.
Was she having any issue with her vision at that time?
She was experiencing blurry vision at that time.
What was your treatment recommendation at that appointment?
I recommended she go to the hospital for more IVIG treatment.
Okay. And Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1039, pages 11 and 14. Was Lisa admitted to the hospital?
She was.
And how did they treat Lisa's MG flare-up at the hospital at that time?
She required IVIG again for a period of 3 days.
Okay. How many?
3.
And so that one round a day?
That's one round a day consecutively for 3 days.
Okay. Brendan, please bring up, so that's one round of these 8,000 dollars.
Yes, correct.
When did Lisa, Brendan, please pull up Exhibit 1037, page 96. Can you tell us when did you see Lisa next after she was discharged from Centennial Hospital?
So October 7th, 2019, she came back to my office.
What symptoms was she experiencing at that time?
She was experiencing difficulty swallowing with solids and liquids at that time. She was having trouble with speaking and dryness in her throat as well.
Was she having muscle spasms?
Muscle spasms continued with twitching all over her body.
Vision disturbances?
Blurry vision as well.
Was she having tremors all over her body?
Yes.
Okay. Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1037, page 89. Did these symptoms resolve?
No.
Did you see her again on January 6, 2020?
I did.
And what was she complaining about at this time?
So at that time, she had progression of symptoms that now involved her back. She started having really bad back spasms. Tightness in her throat that continued and progressed as well.
Was she having weakness in her legs?
Weakness in both legs as well, yes.
Okay. Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1037, page 91. What was your assessment at that point, at that appointment with Lisa?
So she continued to have the facial nerve injuries, the neck stiffness. She was having issues with her slurred speech and issues with her balance, or it's called gait disturbance. She was experiencing leg cramps, vocal cord issues, speech abnormalities, and she continued to have the tremors in her whole body.
All right, thank you. Have the symptoms you've just taken us through been persistent symptoms Lisa has experienced since being diagnosed with myasthenia gravis?
They've been persistent and progressive.
And progressive, getting worse?
Yes.
Okay. Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1039, pages 648 and 661. When was Lisa next hospitalized for an MG exacerbation?
On November 23rd, 2022, she had been experiencing tightness of the throat that was progressive and started 2 days prior to her going to the hospital. It was pretty severe exacerbation.
And how did you treat her exacerbation, or how did they treat her exacerbation in the hospital at that time?
She actually required 4 days of IVIG this time.
4 rounds?
4 rounds, yeah.
Okay. So 4 consecutive
days.
Okay. Did you, at this time, recommend or prescribe monthly IVI treatments at any time? Well, let me back up. Did you recommend or prescribe monthly IVI treatments at any time to be done on an outpatient basis at your office?
Yes. Back in 2019, we had discussed it and I recommended it.
Okay. So, if an attorney stood up in this courtroom and suggested that you had never recommended monthly IVIG treatments for Lisa in the past, would that be a true statement?
That would be false.
Okay. Has there ever been another time prior to 2025, when you've been treating Lisa for her MG, that you recommended she have monthly IVI treatments on an outpatient basis in your office?
Yes.
And what brought that about the second time?
So her symptoms were getting progressive. This admission to the hospital in November was so severe that, I really wanted her to stay on a regular treatment.
Is that November 2022?
2022, I'm sorry, yes, November 2022. I wanted to make sure that we kept her on a treatment so she wouldn't end up back in the hospital over and over again and put her life at risk, essentially.
Was it sometime after that you recommended that she go to monthly treatments?
Yes.
Okay. And when after this flare-up, when she was in the hospital for 4 consecutive days with IVI treatment, well, let me back up. Why, after this flare-up in November 2020 and these 4 days of IVI treatment in the hospital, did you recommend monthly IVI treatments for her?
Just because her symptoms, as I mentioned, were getting worse and worse over time. And it reached a point to where I felt that it was a true risk if she was not receiving this treatment.
Did you think it was a better way to help manage her symptoms?
Yes, definitely.
And did she go to monthly treatments for a period of time?
She did.
And Brendan, please bring up Exhibit 1011, page 50 and 52. And when did they start?
They started on February 15th, 2023. She received 2 consecutive days of IVIG. It says Panziga, that's a brand of IVIG that she received in the office.
So she had an IVI treatment at your office on an outpatient basis in February 2023, February 15th and 16th, 2023.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. And the charge there says Panziga is IVIG.
Correct, it's a brand of IVIG.
How many rounds did you give her, and was it over 1 day?
We gave her 2 rounds over 2 days, 2 separate days,
Okay.
back to back.
And after that, did Lisa inquire or ask you whether instead of doing it over 2 days, you could do it over 1 long day?
Yes.
And why did Lisa ask you if you could do it over 1 day instead of 2 days?
So anytime you have IVIG, you have to gain access. So they have to put in a needle basically and get to your vein. So Lisa's what we call a hard stick. It's difficult to get that access. So anytime she goes to have this procedure done, she'd have to get poked multiple times, and it becomes very, very painful. And not only that, anytime you poke in those areas, over time scar tissue can build up. And so we decided to try to do the 2 days over slow drip over 6-7 hours so that she can receive it all at once, so she doesn't have to get poked over and over again.
When was the next time you did IVIG on an outpatient basis at your office for Lisa?
I believe it was, I remember the date offhand.
March 16th?
Yeah, March 16th. There it is. So yeah, so March 16th she did Panziga again.
In 2023?
Yes, correct.
Okay, a month later.
A month later.
Okay. Was Lisa's IVIG in March 2003 over 2 days or just 1 day?
It was over 1 day.
Was it 2 rounds?
It was 2 rounds done in 1 day, correct.
It was a long 1 day.
Long day, yeah, it took about 6 hours plus.
And why was it over a long period of time? Why do you do it over a long period of time?
So we tend to do it over a long period of time because the most common complaint is headaches. It can really, as I mentioned, fatigue, make you very, very tired. So we do it slowly so as to try and prevent migraines and severe headaches from occurring.
Did Lisa have a particular problem with this?
Yes, she does have a problem with it, yes.
Now, why are you able to give 2 rounds of IVI treatment in 1 day at your office, but when it's done in the hospital, they will only do 1 round a day?
So in the hospital, usually it requires treatment from 3 to 5 days. Typically, you can do 2 days, or 2 rounds in a 24-hour period, but if you do any more than that, the side effects can compound and it can become unbearable on the body. So we typically can do 2 days in a row, two IVIG treatments in 1 day, but beyond that, we don't do any more than that. It'd be too risky.
Brendan, could you bring up Exhibit 1011, page 46? When is the next time that Lisa had IVIG treatment at your office on an outpatient basis after March of 2023?
That was on April 13th, 2023. She had, again, 2 rounds performed in 1 day.
Okay. Did Lisa return for an IVI treatment at your office on an outpatient basis in May 2023?
No.
Was there a particular reason for that?
Yes.
Your Honor, this would be a good time to take our afternoon break, if you like. It's a good break in my questioning.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're time for afternoon recess. I see a couple nods. All right. Remember, you're admonished not to converse amongst yourselves or with anyone else in the subject connected to this trial, or to read, watch, or listen to the report or commentary on the trial by any persons connected with this case, or by any medium of information, including without limitation, newspaper, television, radio, social media. And last but not least, do not form or express any opinion on any subject connected with this trial and to the cause finally submitted to you. And we'll take 15, so.
Yes, Your Honor. All rise for the departure of the jury. Jury's clear, Your Honor. Please be seated.
Off the record, Your Honor? No.
Not to speak. If there's any issues regarding exhibits.
Yeah, sure.
I need an itemized list of every exhibit that is pre-admitted, because when it comes to motions, you could say, motion as to exhibit whatever to be pre-admitted. But I don't have exhibit number whatever. I don't know, these are thousands of exhibits. I don't know what the exhibits are, so I don't have a record of it. It could be pre-admitted, that's fine. I need a list of all of the exhibits.
Where is,
And it has to be on the record.
Yeah, and they'll get it.
Will, Eric?
oh, I'm supposed to do this.
Have you guys gotten?
Like, I brought this up in jury selection,
No worries.
From the
That's why I gave you mine.
and I greatly appreciate
That's
that.
the
Now
list you gave us.
I'm gonna get Eric, and we'll see
Because
what's
if
going on with
anything
it.
goes wrong with the
That
exhibits, I
pre-admission
can use
list is
my.
not the one from.
We're not gonna let that happen.
Sorry.
And as far as this
there's
post
some
offer goes, as far as 1204, what do you want
won't
this to be called? Judge cannot be
Exhibit
sitting on the
1204.
bench, it's not a record.
Plaintiff's a trial.
Yes, plaintiff's trial exhibit 1204.
Right, but
Lisa
I need a
Keys.
description.
Send that to Lori with the-
No, that's diagram. I mean, I'm happy to tell for it. Your Honor?
And then, one more thing, we have the exhibit list. It goes from 1203 to 1801. There's no space for me to write anything with new exhibits. So can someone
Yeah,
from
we'll get
plaintiff's
that.
counsel give
We'll
me
get
a
that.
new list
We'll get
so
that.
that I can write in new exhibits?
We'll get that.
Thank you.
Counsel, just for, or excuse me. Your Honor, just for the record, plaintiff's counsel has a list of the pre-admitted exhibits they have circulated to us. We've had a chance to review, so I believe Counselor Peppermint
Yeah, I got it.
has got a copy from the court.
Yeah, we're gonna have to just hit those numbers.
Okay.
Can we do it now?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks. You are too.
Yeah, I got them all.
On the record, yes.
And Tori, do you want me to just read them all, even the ones that have already been
The
admitted?
doctor step down.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sir, yeah, take a
Thank you.
break.
Thanks so much.
So, and then let's get this started. Take a break. Go ahead.
Bonus. Are we on the record?
Yes.
Exhibits 1 through 11,
Okay.
Admitted.
13 through 53,
Okay.
59 through 74, 78 through 88, 95 through 106, 110 through 112, 118 and 119, 129 through 132, 133 through 136, 138 and 139, 141 and 142,
Hang on, 141 and 142.
147 through 152.
152, you said?
Yes.
My list starts at 148 that I was provided.
147 is the current photo on the jury notebook.
That was, just take a look. Yeah, that's fine.
210 through 215. 229 through 231. 235 through 242.
235 is a photo. Again, this is not consistent with the list that we were provided. 235 was not on the list. 210, 211 were not on the list.
These are just photos that were pre-admitted.
How about this? Let me see what you were. I'm just going to do this because I don't think we're actually going to have any conflict. Okay.
Is that the list I sent you this morning, Council?
Yes, it is.
And that one goes to the board.
Yeah, that's okay,
This is one that was forwarded to me. If you don't care for me standing over your shoulder, I'm perfectly fine to just.
No, yeah, that's fine.
Again, I don't think we
I'm
have
sorry,
any
Tori,
issues.
where did I leave off?
242.
Uh, 271,
Okay.
282 through 290, 312, 324 through 328, 340 through 343, 354 through 359, 372 through 373, 383 through 385, 387, 398 through 400, 403, 422 and 423, 430, 482, 484, 485, and 487.
485 and 487.
Exhibit 500. Exhibit 711 and 712.
Just 712. All right.
Exhibits 1001 through 1053. 1061 through 1070. 1072. 1,081 through 1,154.
1,154.
Yeah.
Admitted.
And that was 1,081 through 1,154, right?
Correct. 1,161 and 1,162.
Admitted.
1,164 through 1,166. 1,168.
Admitted.
1,169.
Admitted.
1,171.
Admitted.
Was that 1,171?
Yes.
Yes. 1,174. 1,176.
Admitted.
1,177.
Admitted.
1,179.
Admitted.
1,183 through 1,188.
Admitted.
You said 1,177, right?
1,177, yes. But that was before, that wasn't the range.
1,178 was skipped, and then we started again at 1,179.
Okay.
So yeah, 1,176, 177, 1,178 is skipped, 1,179 is admitted. And then the range I just read starts at 1,183, and that goes through 1,188.
Admitted.
1,192 through 1,193.
Admitted.
1,195 through 1,203.
Admitted.
You said 1,200 what?
Admitted.
And then 1,826 through 1,833. And 1,853 through 1,854.
Admitted.
That's it.
Well done.
And then
Thank you, Eric.
you'll get me the exhibit list with the space so that I can add in 1204.
Yes.
And she got the space, so make sure we're on the same page.
Okay, not that I also.